boys and girls, students of Buddhist Sunday school and Dhamma classes, parents and grandparents, and teachers of Buddhist Sunday school. May you all be well, happy, and peaceful. We are going to have another Jataka story called the Amba Jataka with the title The Helpful Monk. Now, this Jataka story is a touching tale, a touching story, and you have heard many Jataka stories, the stories of Buddha's previous lives as recorded in these Jataka stories. And there are many life lessons and Dharma teachings that we can learn from these stories. It's not important whether these stories are really true or not, just as you have Aesop's fables and so on. Important thing is the Dharma teachings, the Dharma messages we can learn from these stories. Now, the presentation has the text in English and Malay, while the narration, audio narration and explanation is in English. Now, as usual, we will have the PowerPoint, right? And before that, I can stop the video. And then now let us launch the PowerPoint. The slideshow from the beginning. You can see the cover slide. You can see that the main character is this helpful monk lah. And also in the account, you will encounter animals lah. So the story starts this way. So let us go on to slide number 2. Now, during the Buddha's time, there was a monk who was from a noble Sawati family. Now, Sawati or Shravasti is one of those very important towns during Buddha's time where the Buddha spent the most number of vasa, that means the rains retreats. In this noble place, you have many monasteries and temples. And there was this monk whose family was a noble family, and the noble family resided in Sawati. And this monk was very diligent. It's a young monk, but very diligent and reliable in carrying out all of his duties as a young monk. There were many other senior monks in the monastery, and he faithfully did all the duties of a younger monk to his elders. Now you can see these pictures that illustrate very clearly what the text is all about. So there was this young monk, very hardworking. He would always sweep the monastery ground and very reliable, a very good monk, keeping the precepts and also the monastic rules, the rules and discipline of the monkhood. And, he would do many things for the fellow monks and also for his teachers. And now one of it, you find this very interesting. It was the tradition, and it is still now the tradition, especially in Thailand, Buddhist country, in many monasteries, where the elder monk, right? Elder monk goes out for pindapat, they will be barefooted. So they will be followed by the younger monks, his attendant monks. So when these teacher monks come back, so especially the novice monk or the young monks, they would, among the duties, so faithfully wash the feet of the teachers, because the feet will be dirty, muddy, right? Because they are gone pindapat, collecting food, alms rounds, we call it, and the feet will be dirty. So this is a very interesting practice that, it will show humility, and he did it with a very good heart, And then also, he will be very helpful to the other monks in the duties, very special and likable monk. So did all the duties in the monastery, very respectful to the elders, help all the monks, all the good qualities lah. And other monks in the monastery, especially those most senior ones, they notice, wow, this monk, so diligent, and they really praise him, because he always offered his help whenever he saw other monks in need, That's a very good quality. But sad to say, today in our society, I'm talking about the ordinary lay people, you find even the students today have changed a lot, right? Compared to, the 1970s or 80s, I've taught for 30, 40 years. I look at the difference other years in the 70s, and then the present time. So I don't know. The political model doesn't seem to work. And many in the younger, I wouldn't say all, many in the younger generation lack these sort of values, right? They are more concerned with all the entertainment, TikTok, Facebook, and so on. And very few would even volunteer to help, in Buddhist association and so on. Just look at our own Buddhist association. Those days when PBHP started, I was placed in charge of one of the duties for the community library. You will be able to get 60 student volunteers to run the library. But then as the years went by, fewer and fewer would want to volunteer. So this is happening all over. It's quite sad. So this story is inspiring, especially about the diligence of this young monk. And let's see what would happen. So these three pictures show very clearly what the story is trying to tell you. Now let us go on to slide number 3 now. So this helpful monk noticed that many people came to see the Buddha. So you find the Buddha, as you know, the fully enlightened one, perfect wisdom, compassion. So people all over the different kingdoms in northern India would travel from very far and would come to see the Buddha, to do dana, to do the offerings, the food, the 4 requisites, the food, and then the clothing, which means the robes, and then also some medicine, and to contribute to the living quarters, right? The monastery and so on. Maybe the monastery requires certain repairs and so on. So these are the 4 requisites only. And the people are also devoted. You can see these are the lay people. They travel so far to the monastery or the temple. And of course, in certain seasons, it will be quite hot in India, right? To see the enlightened one. And then, of course, later on, they will listen to the teachings, the Dhamma, right? And having traveled so far, so they were thirsty. So there was this helpful monk, that's the main character. So he was very compassionate. So he took it upon himself to make sure all the jars that contain drinking water will always be full, so that the visitors always had water to drink. And of course, he did many other duties to help the lay people feel comfortable, peaceful, to tend to them. So he was very, very diligent, really very helpful. How we wish we have more students like this. So this is a very motivating story. So that is this part of the story, and the pictures I've taken from the internet, a video presented, and then I just cut out certain parts and also involve taking the pictures out. And now let us go on to the next slide, which is slide number 4 now. Number 4. So these lay people, they came from afar, so they actually notice, they observe his kindness, they observe, oh, he is so kind, so likable, with a pleasant personality, so polite, so helpful, all the good qualities, and one of which is very caring and diligent in his practice. So they had a meeting among themselves. So they say, we must repay his kindness. Right? They wanted to pay his kindness. And then in one meeting, they decided that we must actually bring him offerings for him also. Right? Bring offerings for him to show our gratitude. So these lay people were also good practicing Buddhists. Right? So they are grateful to the young monk that helped and so diligent and all the qualities. So what the lay people did was, of course, they also gave some food to the temple, but they offered to this particular helpful, diligent monk many delectable meals, Delectable means just delicious, sedap makan. And you can see just a picture, all sorts of food, because they have brought from their places, the fruits, the cooked food, the raw vegetables, all sorts of food, a lot, and offered to the helpful monk, right? So this is a very good practice of dana, a very good practice of gratitude, especially gratitude, which is very lacking today. The Buddha spoke about this. Later on, we will discuss some of these points. So now let us go on to number 5. So instead of being selfish, he got all this food, including those that can be kept. He did not keep for himself at all, So this helpful monk shared all the food with his monk brothers, right? So very, very generous, not selfish at all. Very caring and thinking about other people. So this led to great gain and honor for the monastery, because the monastery now, really supported a lot of food. So it was honor that lay people would bring so much food and support them. So there was actually, he contributed to the gain and honor. People would talk about him, good things. Wow, this monk received very good training. It's a good monastery. It's so fantastic, so diligent, and so on. So one day, in the monastery, there is this hall of truth, they call it hall of truth. It's just a day one, where, we call it Dhammasala, I think. The monks all gathered together and they would listen to the Dhamma given by the Buddha in this big hall. They gather. So one day the monks gathered in this hall, and they spoke of the helpful monk's goodness, They were full of praise and talked good things about the monk, and how he had brought them much gain and honor. Right? So, the monks were very grateful also, isn't it? Because they also shared the food, and they knew that he was a very good monk that had brought fame to the monastery. That people say, wow, this monastery could produce a monk like this, and then so highly supported, must be a very good monastery. So the monastery gained respect and honor because of this diligent monk to a large part. So that is this slide number 5. So now let us go to slide number 6. When the Buddha entered the hall of truth, actually, the Buddha would come to give talks regularly. So he saw the monks discussing things. So he asked them what they were talking about. So then the monks told him. About this diligent, helpful monk and how he had brought honor and so on. Then the Buddha said, this is not the first time that this monk has done his duties well. In the past, 500 hermits were supported by the results of these monks' good actions. So the Buddha said that this is not the first time he is such a helpful monk. His previous lives also, he had done very, very meritorious and helpful actions. So there was one life, right, that he was a hermit, and there were many, many other hermits. The story will always say 500 hermits. You actually meant many, many hermits. And these hermits are spiritual people who live in solitude, right? They don't go out into the society, enjoy all those things, right? They are on a religious practice and they follow strict religious discipline to develop their minds. They're on the spiritual path. Actually, they also want to become liberated, to be free from suffering. So this is the meaning of hermits, spiritual people who leave their homes and lead the solitary lives all together with other hermits, right? They just learn from the teacher. And that time, this helpful monk was a hermit during that time. And also he was very, very helpful. And because of his actions, the results supported so many hundreds of the other hermits. So then the other monk said, Lord, please tell us the story of his past life. Please tell us. And that's how the Buddha told this story, right? And let us now look into the story. So the story starts this way. A long time ago, when Brahmadatta reigned in Benares, long time ago, Brahmadatta was the king. And in that place called Benares, now the present name is Varanasi, a very ancient city. Benares is the second oldest city in the world. The oldest is Damascus in this Syria. Today, a lot of trouble in that area. Benares now is Varanasi. I've been to that place 3 times and a very fascinating place, Varanasi. So that time, the king was King Brahmadatta. And during that time, this Bodhisatta means a Buddha to be already, right? So the Buddha said that he, the Bodhisatta, was born as a Brahmin. The Brahmin would be the highest caste in India during that time, of the, you can say, Hindu religion, early Hindu religion, Brahminism. And I know it was quite a traditional practice that, after, getting the education and then learning their religious education, things, the scriptures, the Hindu scriptures, the Vedas, and then they get married, they have children. And when they get older, they will renounce the worldly life. In other words, they will chuchia already and will go out in search of the truth to cultivate spiritually, and they would lead solitary lives as hermits. And so this was the Bodhisatta, the Buddha during that time was a Bodhisatta. So he wanted to talk about this particular diligent monk. So he said he was the Bodhisatta there, and he was very good and cultivated. Though. So in time to come, of course, he was so advanced in his practice. He was a leader of a group of 500 hermit students. Again, you will find in the scripture very often 500, 500. The meaning actually it just means many, many, right? So these hermit students, that means the students also were hermits, but they were students still learning from this Sipula, right? And this Sipu was not a Buddhist monk yet, because the Bodhisatta was still cultivating. Eventually, you become Siddhartha Gautama, isn't it? So you can see the picture quite clearly that he had many hermit students and he was teaching them. And they don't have all those things like, enjoyment, watch TV or go and play and chit-chat. No, they were serious in their solitary practices. No doubt they live as a community, but they only would talk when necessary. Otherwise, they will be alone, cultivating, meditating, reflecting on the Dhamma, and try to memorize the teachings of the teacher and so on. And it was during that time when Brahmadatta was the king in Benares, there was a terrible drought that spread through the Himalaya country. Right? Now you can just have a look at the pictures for a while. So the 3 pictures you can see, right? The place of Benares, and then the big monastery also, and then the hermit's place, and then the drought. You know what is a drought? So in the drought, no rain for weeks or months. So you could have hardly any green plants or trees, and the earth will get cracked up because of the heat. And the thing is very, very sad is short of water, right? Short of water. So that was the situation during that time, you know. So now let us go to slide number 8 now. Slide number 8. So of course the drought caused much suffering, you know. Probably the monastery, they might still, you know, have some wells. They would dig some wells and they could still get some water. But outside, wow, the drought caused much suffering and hardship for all the animals, you know. The animals, you know, in the vicinity could not get the water. And this, one of the Bodhisattva students, who later on in many lives became a disciple, Buddhist disciple, isn't it? Right? Of the Buddha, and he became the one that would fill the jars with water, isn't it? To serve all people and carry out his duties very well in that monastery. That was a future life already. So in this life, where King Brahmadatta was ruling Benares, so the Bodhisattva, this he noticed, you know. He noticed this, sorry, it was one of the Bodhisattva students. Bodhisattva would be one of the lives of the Buddha, the previous life. And he was the leader of the hermit at the time, of the hermits of the Brahmin religion, not yet enlightened yet. So, and he had one student, and this student was very compassionate, full of metta, So, he observed that, wow, the animals were dying because of thirst, right? So much suffering. So his heart was very touched. You know what he did? He cut down a tree, the kind hermit, right? Cut down a tree and hollowed it. In other words, use the tools, make a trough, right? Like a wooden dish, a wooden trough. This is the picture of the trough. You could see some animals, even present day, you have troughs where animals could drink the water from. So he made into a wooden trough, and then he would fill the trough with water. Of course, he could get the well water, right? But outside, you know, we could hardly get water. And the animals, of course, would not all go into the monastery. They have the monastery gates, you see. Otherwise, we have a problem, disturbance, and so on. So then he would fill the trough with water for the animals to drink, you know. Wow, you know, so many animals came to drink from the hermit's trough. So this was a very compassionate hermit student of the Bodhisattva, the Brahmin teacher. And not Buddhism yet, remember? So very fast, the water would run out. The water ran out quickly, and the hermit, this hermit, very compassionate hermit, had to work hard to fill. Every time would fill the trough. Just as in the later life, he would fill the jars with water for the visitors who came from afar and were very thirsty. You know, it is a very interesting point, right, of these good traits carrying on. So, let us see now what happens next now. So the kind hermit worked very hard to keep the water filled so that the animals would not suffer. So how to get the water? Other than maybe a few wells in the monastery ground, maybe he walked to other places to look for deep wells. The animals very difficult, you know, they cannot draw the water out from the well, isn't it? The animals, and they cannot reach the water in the well. So, but this person, a man, could use these buckets and so on, and will draw water, and then, you know, you can see the picture, how he will fetch the water and then fill the troughs for the animals to drink, so that the animals would not suffer. So he worked really tirelessly, right? Very hard, right? In order to quench the animals' thirst. Otherwise, the animals could die of thirst, isn't it? In fact, he worked so hard to get the water for all the animals who were so thirsty. He did not even have time or energy left to gather fruits for himself. So, maybe, certain areas, there could still be some fruit trees or what lah, right? But most of the areas in drought are covered by drought already. So he had no time even to, energy to go so far and get some fruits or vegetables or so on. So the kind hermit did this for many days, And each day, more and more animals will come because animals from all over, of course, those that were more fortunate to find some water in the areas where, some plants and trees will grow. But many areas struck by the drought, So more and more animals will come, and the kind hermit had to work harder and harder, to refill the troughs, Just now I show you the trough, So, he was very tired. He had also no energy or time to go and get the food. He just want to probably survive with a little food in the monastery. So the animals noticed this. Right? The animals noticed this. So now let's see what happens at slide number 10. Right? Now, so the animals, once they are brought so much. Oh, so this is, let us look at number 9 first. Right? Go to number 9 first. This one actually shows right, that he was very, very tired. So now actually it's correct. We go to number 10. So the animals, once their thirst was quenched, they could manage to drink. So then they all had a meeting, Animals all had a meeting and they could communicate. So this is Jataka story, as of people I told you. So, and they was communicating among themselves. Wow, this hermit really very kind, always feeling the water so difficult for us to drink, and we owe our lives to him, So they gathered together and say, we must repay his kindness. They're so grateful. Today, very hard to find grateful people, as the Buddha said also, right? But this time, you see, even the animals could be grateful. So they say, we must repay his kindness. He is so touched by his diligent work, so compassionate, full of metta to fill the water for the animals to drink during the hard times. And they also noticed that the hermit was so busy tending to the needs of the animals, right? Filling the trough with water. And that did not leave him much time to gather food for himself. So which means that he had little food to take also. So then the animals decided, now we must repay his kindness, must be grateful. So we'll have this done. Anyone that come to drink the hermit's water must also bring some food. Some food, which means they will go and search for some, maybe certain areas that I still have some fruits, fruit trees, right? Not many because of drought season, but there might be some areas still with some fruit trees. And even the story doesn't tell how the animals went to get the fruits. But the principle is that they were very grateful and they got some food every time. Every animal, that was the decision to repay his kindness and to show gratitude. So that is slide number 11. Now let us go on to slide number 12, 11. That is slide number 10. Now let's go on to slide number 11. Wow, the animals so many of them brought so much food. And the story, maybe it's exaggerated form. There was enough to fill 250 wagons. Actually, sometimes, in the writing of the story, they use certain exaggerated phrases, right? In order to say that there was a lot of food. Just as say 500 monks, 500 monks every time. Actually, it just means many, many monks. So likewise, I would interpret to fill 250 wagons means they brought lots and lots of food. You can't really go and fill the 250 and then, that's a story like that. You find in English language, even in other languages, they use metaphors and then use exaggerations and so on. But you have to get the message. So the kind hermit, wow, there's a picture of him. He was so shocked to see so much food. But he was very generous and kind-hearted and not at all selfish. So he brought all the food back to the hermitage, where his fellow monks were staying, you see. And then also the master, the Brahmin Bodhisattva, remember, of the Hindu religion, right? Because not during the, it's not Buddhism yet. This one was during the Brahmin's time. Brahminism was being taught. So he brought all the food back to the hermitage. And everybody was quite surprised. He started to give out freely, anybody, even devotees who came for the hermitage could get their share because there was enough food, so much food the animals brought. Right? So much food. So the people of the hermitage there, including, the monks and also the some lay workers there or what, they did not have to go out for many days, because there's so much food there offered by the animals. So for many days, they did not have to go out to do begging for food or to search for food, right? So much food brought by animals. If they were to go out to search for food, they probably would have to walk many, maybe hours, or maybe even many, many hours to reach areas where you can get some food, right? Or to reach certain villages. So it was fantastic, isn't it? Right? Something very, very touching. The gratitude of the animals. After we reflect on the Dhamma. And then this picture here shows the animals bringing all the food, and he was very shocked, and he shared with all the other monks and whoever, even the lay people that came to the monastery. So that is this slide number 11 now. So that was a very, very interesting thing. So now let us go on to the presentation. So during that time, I told you, who was the guru? Was actually the Buddha in the previous life as a Bodhisattva, a Buddha to be. So he, of course, also saw the actions of this very kind and helpful hermit. That life, he was a hermit. And then during Buddha's time, he was a disciple, junior monk, right? So you can see the various life that going on to improve until you will reach very high spiritual heights. So the Bodhisattva, which means you can say Swami also, right? Or you say the leader of these hermits, hermit tribe. So he praised the Buddha. He praised this particular hermit monk, very kind. He praised him by saying, one man's goodness has been the cause of all this food for all these hermits. We should learn from his example and be steadfast in doing good. That is a very interesting message from this Bodhisattva, who was the Brahmin teacher, a hermit also, leading the other hermit student. You see, he praised this particular student, the helpful hermit, and he said, we must learn from his example. When you reflect, you say, very true. We must learn to be kind, helpful, and then not selfish, full of metta, compassion. All those good Dhamma points we have to learn. Don't have to question so much a story true or not true. But the Dhamma is fantastic, isn't it? Then the Buddha ended the story. So the Buddha, told this story to the monks, saying that the monk that used to fill the water for the guests, that was not the first time he had been doing such good things. And he traced back to the time of the Bodhisattva, he himself, the Bodhisattva, as the Brahmin teacher. Then he identified the characters. The Buddha said, the helpful water-filling monk, remember this particular picture I put before, started to fill this monk during Buddha's time, always will fill the water and did other helpful things for the visitors. And then the Buddha said, right, this particular water-filling monk, in that life where the Bodhisattva was the guru teaching the hermit students, in that life, he was that water-filling hermit to help the animals. So you see, he had, been reborn until the time when he was a disciple of the Buddha. Before that, he was a student hermit of the Brahmin teacher. And then the Buddha said, during that time, I was the hermit's master. I see that time he was the Brahmin teacher. And this period, the enlightened Buddha. So it's quite an interesting Jataka story, right? And it teaches us many good things, right? So you can see the picture here, right? Where the Brahmin teacher, right? And he later on also will be reborn finally into Siddhartha Gautama Buddha after many lives of cultivating all the good qualities spiritually. So this picture shows it where he praised the kind hermit student. And this, of course, this shows the hardworking, filling the trough with water for the animals to drink. And then many lives later, when he became the young monk in Buddha's monastery, and he was the one that did so many good things, like filling the water jars and also other things he did for as duty, responsible duties. I remember washing the feet of the master and so on. So this is a very interesting story. So now we come to the most important part where we have to discuss the Dhamma. Story, okay, right? But you must learn the Dhamma lessons. You can call it life lessons also. And these Dhamma lessons help us to live more peacefully, more happily, and more wisely, living righteously, so that we will have more peace, happiness in this life, as well as in future lives. That is the purpose of discussing the Dhamma teachings. So now let us go on to the Dhamma lessons we have to learn from this story, right? Even the story is very interesting in the sense the first part, it concerns the particular monk, young monk who fill the water to the jars, isn't it? And then after that, the monks there asked the Buddha to tell about his previous life, where the Buddha said that in previous life he was also like that. He had done this before, so kind, giving water, in that case, giving water to the animals. So now let us look at the few lessons. Dhamma lessons to learn. Pelajaran Dhamma untuk dipelajari lah. So now let us look at the next one. The first one is be diligent and responsible to carry out one's duties. Bersikap tekun dan bertanggung jawab untuk menjalankan tugas yang sepatutnya dijalankan. Wholesome things one duties wholesome duties Now you see that this quality of diligence is in the scriptures. The Buddha said is one, if not the most important spiritual quality a person has to possess in order to be successful. Not only in following the Dhamma, practicing the Dhamma, we have to be diligent. But actually in our world, as ordinary people, 在家人 also, whether you are a student or you are a family member or you are a working person, diligence is very important, isn't it? That if you want to be very successful, getting all A's as a student in your Form 5 or Form 6, then you need to be diligent, isn't it? You need to work hard, to study hard, with good concentration and mindfulness, and not just to pray and pray and pray, but not diligent at all. No matter how much you pray, but if you don't do your work, you are not diligent, you cannot get the results. You may not even get 1A. That's why in the Christian world, I remember I was taught this. God helps those who help themselves. which means that if you don't help yourself, you don't work hard, even God cannot help you. And that is what the Buddha also said earlier, right? That we need diligence. And then responsibility. You have a responsibility, even as an ordinary person, you have to be responsible to carry out your duties as a member of the family, or maybe in your company, you have to carry out your responsibilities well, isn't it? Then the good things will come. People will respect you, have high regards of you, and you get promotion in your work. So responsibility is very important even in our ordinary lives. But today you find there are people, even students, irresponsible. Supposed to do certain things they don't do. So what will people think of you? People would give you bad names, right? It's terrible. Now I say, look at Dhamma practice. If you are a Buddhist, then you must, with responsibility, carry out your duties. Like, for example, in Sakalawada Sutta, the Buddha taught that, there are proper ways, for the husband to treat the wife to treat the husband, or the parents to treat their children, or the students to treat the teacher. All those things Buddha gave, right? Ordinary things the Buddha also taught. Not only how to reach Nibbana only. So we must have this responsibility. If you don't have responsibility in carrying out your duties, and when you are responsible and carry out your duties or do certain things which are very beneficial to people, then of course, it's a way of dana also. Service, right? So these are very good qualities. So now, we will look at the second one. This one, I think you understand. And of course, this is illustrated very well in the story of the young monk during Buddha's time, and also the hermit student during the time when Bodhisattva was a Brahmin teacher, isn't it? Right? So in both lives, then maybe there were other lives also similar. So it was very responsible to carry out all the duties, and then also have metta and compassion, isn't it? So actually it's related to the story, this Dhamma teaching. Now let us go on to the next Dhamma lesson that we can learn. Practice loving kindness and compassion to all beings. And that you find is a very important, not only Dhamma teaching, but I would say all true religious spiritual teachings, that we must practice love. As Christian would emphasize love. Even Jesus said that love thy enemies. Imagine if the enemy were to slap thee on the left cheek, offer the right cheek, or the right cheek, offer the left cheek. The Buddha also taught similar things. But the Buddha actually came earlier, 600 years before Jesus Christ, see. And then we must, have compassion, 慈悲. Now, what's the difference between metta and karuna, which is compassion? Now, loving kindness means you have good thoughts, you want other people to be happy, peaceful, calm, all the good things you wish for other people. Compassion would be that sort of feeling inside you that you want to relieve the suffering of another being, right? Let's say you are walking in the street, and then you used to have great, feelings of metta, goodwill, benevolence, loving kindness. That is the translation for metta, for all the beggars and so on. Then one day you encounter a beggar, very pitiful condition, and you are overwhelmed by metta. You feel very sorry for him. I wish him well. But it's not only wishing well, no. Then compassion arises in your heart. Then you give him food. You want to help him so that he doesn't suffer that much. That is compassion. So it's more active compassion, right? What you do. So, and of course, I think you have also learned how to practice metta. Metta Bhavana is a meditation on loving kindness, and you have learned how to practice. I've done a posting on Metta Bhavana in the PowerPoint slide share, I think probably might be YouTube also, where I talk about the what, the how, and the why. What actually is metta or loving kindness? And then why should we practice it? And then how do we go about it? So all explained there. You can search, and if you have forgotten, you can look at that. And actually in the scriptures, the Buddha talk about 11 benefits that one can get if one practices metta. Don't have the time to go all over again this. So you see, in this particular presentation of the story, which is from the Amba Jataka, is quite illustrated, right? Illustrated, shown very well that this particular young monk during Buddha's time was very kind-hearted, isn't it? So he was full of metta and karuna, right? But Mandarin, they use the word 慈悲, that means with metta, loving kindness, as well as with compassion. You know, sympathy is much lower than this. Empathy will be closer to this thing, compassion, right? To feel for others' suffering and wanting to do something to relieve the suffering. That is compassion, right? So you could see that as a monk receiving the visitors, he was full of love and compassion, isn't it? Filling the water jars and so on. And in that life, when he was just a hermit student, under the Bodhisattva during that time, a Brahmin teacher, he was also very kind and compassionate, as shown by his action to help relieve the suffering of the thirsty animals. And he was kind and compassionate also towards his fellow monks. He shared the food and gave freely out, isn't it? So that's why I brought in this point, because it's well illustrated in the Jataka story. Now let us go on to the third one, I think. Doing good brings with it many, many benefits. Of course, the reverse is also true. Doing bad will bring with it lots of suffering, isn't it? So you find, I would say that, you know, many teachings that are given talk in terms of avoiding the bad actions, right? Like, for example, when you observe precepts, actually the basic principle is not to cause harm, suffering, or hurt to other beings. That is the basis of sila, morality. Like, for example, you know, the first precept is not to kill, because killing will cause harm, right? Killing will cause suffering. That person will be very scared just before the blood dies, isn't it? And then the family members also will be really suffering when some more member in the family is killed. I just saw one series of a serial killer, right? And that man, I think something wrong with the mind, and he killed 17 young men, you know, and then also torture them, and then, you know, cut them into pieces. And then after that, he would cook some parts, including the heart. It is horrible. I saw the series of that particular true story happened in US in the 1990s, I think, something like that, right? So this one probably is suffering from things of the mind, right? That cause him to do all those things. But actually he's doing bad, isn't it? Causing so much suffering to the family members left behind by the victims of this serial killer. So doing these evil actions would bring lots of hardship, suffering to himself, and not only in this life and in future lives. And of course, when the court cases went on and so on, he was found guilty and sentenced to hundreds of years in jail. Because that place in Wisconsin in US already abolished the death penalty. So he was put into jail in endless. You can say that they put there many, many hundred years, but he couldn't live that many years. It means it will be for the whole life. So it brings suffering. Need to be in jail is not a good thing, isn't it? And then I think at 30 years old, he was already slaughtered to death by an inmate. Another prisoner, don't know, kill him off also. So you see cause and effect. right? So this actually illustrates the principle of cause and effect, the law of moral causation, the law of karma. You do good, good things come to you, isn't it? Many benefits can come to you, and sometimes also you come to the good people around you also will get that. And you can share the merits also, you see. But remember, the bad things will bring the suffering. So it's very important that we must not do the bad things, right? That's why the precepts are no killing, no stealing, no sexual misconduct, no lying, no using this harsh speech, no carrying tales, or using malicious speech, and then no gossip, and using bad words, foul language. And so all these things in terms of negative things like no this, no that, because if you avoid all these things, then you would cause harm to other people, isn't it? Right? So in a way, that means it's very important, right? Of course, you want to talk about the positive things, right? Yeah, then you can say practice compassionate things, practice dana, practice contentment, and then practice metta speech, gentle speech, right? Practice the truth, and then practice useful speech, like Dhamma, sharing, that can help. That one can say in positive terms. But more important is avoid all those evil things. Then you actually are on the right path. So doing good brings with it many benefits. But you see, in the Dhamma teaching, we emphasize so much. We also have the 10 wholesome actions. But I've done the posting many times in different ways about the 10 unwholesome actions that you must not do. Just quickly go over because they are so important. I repeat many times important things. Just as when I studied the scriptures, I found that the Buddha repeated the very important things many, many times. No? Why? Because it's very easy for us to forget going through one year and coming out the other year. So the Buddha, with his great wisdom, with his psychic power, he could know that human minds are like that. That's why he repeated many times. And I'm following the same method to repeat the very important things many times. So 10 unwholesome things we must not do. 3 of the mind. Mind actually is, I shouldn't point here as if it's here. The mind, I think you know what it is. The speech and the body. 3 things of the mind. We must not be covetous, very greedy, wanting to have other people's things, or even having other people's wives or husbands. And then not to have anger and hate. And then not to be deluded, having the wrong views, having very high ego and conceit. These are the 3 things of the mind. And then 4 things of the speech we must not have. No lying, no slander, tale carrying, talking something bad about other people, cause 2 people to quarrel or 2 parties to quarrel. That's all. Speech is not good. And then no using of rough, harsh speech, bad language that hurts other people's heart. Terrible, isn't it? Abusive speech, and then no gossip, idle talk, frivolous talk that waste so much time and energy, and then later on goes on to rumors and so on, and cause a lot of unnecessary trouble. So these are 4 things of the speech that we must not do. Then 3 things of the body you know very well. No killing, no stealing or taking what is not given to you, and then no sexual misconduct. Like adultery is very commonly mentioned. And also I should include also like rape also is terrible, or molesting, so on. So these are the 10 unwholesome things you must avoid. Akusala karma. Now let us go on to I think it should be the last one already, right? Yes. Now, this is a very important spiritual practice. It's not only taught by the Buddha. It's actually present in all religions. That we must practice gratitude. Gratitude to so many things, the blessings that we have. Right? We are so fortunate, right, to have a home to live in, to have food, to have education, to have parents that tend to our needs, and some so lucky to have all those luxurious items, good handphones, laptop, many things. So are you grateful for all those things? You take things for granted. You see, we take things for granted. And today you find, in fact, not today, the Buddha realized this already long time ago. In Anguttara Nikaya, one of the scriptural collections, the Buddha said, in our life, there are two things where, the two types of people very hard to find. One is the person who is spontaneously very kind, wanting to do good things, just like this hermit monk, right? Wanting to do good things, to help others, to serve people, right? To practice generosity without having to be asked, and be very good intention. Very hard to find, isn't it? Many people want to do these things, they will follow the principle, no money, no talk. And then some will have ulterior motives. They apparently do some good things, but actually they have a bad motive in their minds, isn't it? So to find one who with very good heart, good intention, wanting to do the good things and really doing all those things, good things, hard to find. And the second category, which pertains to this Dhamma teaching here, is very hard to find a person who is grateful, right, for all the things that he has got. Grateful to the many people who have helped him in one way or other. And I find this is very, very true. Like today, for example, you find so many are not practicing gratitude to the parents. They take for granted. And some even worse, when the parents get older, put in the old folks home and hardly visit them, or even in nursing homes, they have money. But then, you think the parents are very happy there? So you see, this is very true, what the Buddha said. And then also, you see, the students are not grateful to those that have helped him. Good teachers or good tutors or the headmaster or what, right? So very hard to find gratitude being practiced. And because you don't practice this, you don't get the benefits, right? The good karma of practicing gratitude. Gratitude can be practiced in so many ways. Now, this story illustrates very well. The first part, before the Jataka story was told, right, that the Buddha pointed out, and the lay people that came from far away, right, and they were served by this particular young monk with the water, always make sure the jars are filled with water, and probably did many other good things, and they were so grateful, isn't it? They practiced gratitude. Wow, they brought him all the offerings, all the food, and he, not selfish, with compassion and kindness, he offered to all the other monks and gave out freely to others also. Isn't it fantastic? Right? And then in the story, when the time he was a hermit student, he also practiced, you can see the gratitude being practiced by the animals. The one I think you remember. Animals also very grateful. And in fact, today also you can see some animals like dogs, right? If you really treat them well and so on, they are very grateful, faithful to you also. So remember this important point. Don't always just assume things, right? I say that there is a decline in the practice of moral values. Sometimes, I send, some of my former students and so on, maybe an e-book or maybe certain good things and so on. Not only no thank you, they don't even acknowledge, right? They don't acknowledge. Maybe it's a lack of mindfulness or just taking things for granted. In most cases, it's taking things for granted, right? They only think about themselves. They don't realize that practicing gratitude is a very good spiritual practice of all traditions. And if you check the internet, you just Google and say the benefits of practicing gratitude. Wow, you find the psychologists, the pakar will list for you all the benefits for your mind. And then your good mind also contribute to your good health of practicing gratitude. So this is a very important point. So now you see, I have discussed these 4 important Dhamma lessons that in a way have a bearing with the presentation of the helpful monk, Amba Jataka, a touching tale. I find this story very touching because I was quite taken by the qualities shown by this young helpful monk. So that's why I find this Jataka story is very meaningful. I chose it. So people sometimes ask me, oh, why this story not true one? Just like Sankanchiu and Aesop Fable. I say, hey, this shouldn't be the argument. We still read Sankanchiu and Aesop Fables. I've learned very important proverbs and lessons from the Aesop Fables. So more important is the life lessons and the messages you can get rather than arguing, not true one, not true one. Then you never change. Right. So this is what I want to say. So now we have I've spoken more than 1 hour already. So before we say sadhu 3 times, I would like to thank and say sadhu to all you boys and girls and students of Buddhist Sunday School and Dhamma classes, and also the parents and grandparents who are guiding the young ones, and of course the teachers of Buddhist Sunday School and Dhamma classes, right? So I say thank you and sadhu to all of you for taking time to follow this presentation and also to practice patience and mindfulness concentration. So I say sadhu to all of you. Now let us put our palms together, hold our palms, and say sadhu 3 times. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May you all be well, happy, and peaceful. And may the Dhamma be practiced by you always so that you will grow in wisdom and compassion. Take care.